MTN SME Hub. Link to business success.
Welcome back to the Big Small Business Show. In studio with us, we've got Susan Rowan. She is the founder of I Am Boho, Boho standing for Bohemian. She runs a brand which is costume jewelry, which talks to the wildflower. You can see that doesn't represent me, but it represents actually quite a big market, a global market. And Susan wants to explore Australia as an alternative market to South Africa. And let's see what we can come up with right now. Okay, so for me, I love the fact that you come from marketing because you therefore are very focused on building brand. And brand, I can hear, is like core, and you've got your brand values, and you've got your pillars or your golden pillars or whatever you call them, that you won't build a business without them. And I think you're already more than halfway there with that kind of insight. But what I see with companies that go into different markets is that the dynamics are very different in different markets. The competitive environment, the legal environment, the context is so different. So to give you an example of that, we were involved in a business that does online gourmet food in the USA. Brings food from France and Italy into the USA and resells it. All expensive, semi-perishable, non-perishable items. Sounds quite simple, right? FDA, all that's all sorted. All of a sudden, it's a Frenchman that runs the business. In France, he knows how to do this business back with 30 years working in the industry. Goes to America, sets this thing up, starts doing well, gets a class action suit because his website is not accessible to visually impaired and other people who cannot interact with his website according to the law that's just come out in America. Gets a class action suit, followed by another class action suit, followed by another class action suit. And so now all he's dealing with is class action suits, but nothing to do with the product, or that the product might have been off or on. It was to do with the website and in not understanding the legal framework of just the website. So very often when we move into new territories, we are blind to the unknowns. So we don't even know what questions to ask, because that came so left field for him that, if the food was off, he knew how to handle that. If somebody required a return, he knew how to handle that. If once somebody said that they had food poisoning, he knew how to handle that. So all the things, coming back to I Am Boho, all the things you know how to handle here, and especially in the punitive police state that Australia is, you need to become very comfortable with understanding that context before you even think about it. And so to me, I would start off just the e-commerce, just going to try and explore through your network or networks of networks, people who have got e-commerce experience in those markets first, and keep asking, what do I need to know to operate here, just from an e-commerce perspective? You might have that you have to have a statement on the website that if you don't have it, it's illegal. So you have to get through all of that first. And that, in my experience, based on a number of businesses that have got, let's call it other website domains, as in other countries, they're quite different in every country. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, now once you're out there, is around the brand. Because I Am Boho has taken you a couple of years to build. You understand how this market reacts. I would very, very deliberately work on building the brand in a subtle but deliberate way in that market. And that market is not Australia. You would choose the part of Australia where you would build that, because I'm sure you don't have unlimited resources. So you would take the resources that you have and start to build the brand in that environment. And that can be done in my opinion, I would do that before I even launch. You want some some tension in the market. You want some demand, some pent-up demand when you open up that site. I Am Boho is coming, I Am Boho is coming. You know, what is I Am Boho? Those kind of things. So there's almost a prelude to the website, which is going to be, when it's switched on, is not only functional and legal, but it now has the next part, which is the distribution. And I was worried you were going to say your own shop. I really was. So I had a whole thing here, and I went dollars, and control. So well done on that. I wouldn't turn away the idea of a distributor. I wouldn't turn that away. I keep my mind open to that. But I would first start with a website first. And now that you spoke about having the employee, you're going to have to come to all the legals of employing somebody in another country, and then the cross-border payments and all those kinds of things that happen. So my guess is that would be somebody within your network or network of networks, and that you probably identified this individual, and they could probably keep the stock at home, and so you're not going to have the expenses. And so now it comes to the control. And the control is the financial control, because these are bitty things. These are really, they're small, and relatively for their size, they're quite valuable. They're not like gold or diamonds, but they still got relatively high value for a small, a square inch or square centimeter. So all that control stuff needs to be done up front. How are we doing stock take? How often are we doing stock take? How can you prove stock take? Because I'm not saying I don't know who this individual is, but act as if they at some point will leave and you're going to get another person in, and you need the controls in place. So getting all your controls in place up front, and how to prove that, and thinking about the schemes that somebody can do in order to take you out. In other words, to say the stock is there but have sold it, show you an old photo of that stock. These are nightmare stories that happen often with people who go and set up overseas. People take them. Okay, so that control, all those control mechanisms before you switch on website. Okay. Then there is the timing of the launch. I see too often that we would know based on all the public holidays in April, if you're in retail, not a good time to launch. When do you launch? So you'd have to get the timing of that, and then set this thing up in a project based around that. So just to recap, it's making sure your e-commerce is completely legal, and valid, and otherwise you're going to just spend a disproportionate amount of your time dealing with that. Number two is that you're building the brand prior. Number three, you've got your control mechanism, and then obviously your distribution. I think that's a given. And then finally, what's the timing of that? If you get those, I can't see why you shouldn't do it. But what I would do, my last point here, is to document that. Because if you get that right in Australia, what stops you getting that right for California? What stops you getting that right for the south of France? What stops you getting that right for Italy, et cetera, et cetera? And so you start to build a momentum of opening up sites and building a global brand with all those brand values, because you've built the mechanism of opening up e-commerce sites with a distributor in each domain. And that, Susan, is all I've got for you. I hope that helped.
Amazing.
Well, that's it for today's show. I hope those of you are thinking about opening up e-commerce stores in other domains also learn something from that. So do remember, if you think it, write it down and make it a reality.
The Big Small Business Show, proudly sponsored by MTN Business.